Thanks so much for sharing your garden with us. And right now, it's a genuine pleasure to welcome to Central Texas Gardener an American gardening legend, Brent Heath from Brent and Becky's Bulbs in Virginia. And anybody who's familiar with bulbs knows that this is one of the hot spots in the world, really, for getting high-quality bulbs that are really going to perform well in the United States. Welcome to Central Texas Gardener.
Wow, thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here.
Well, it's great to have you in Austin, and let's start for the uninitiated. Let's start by talking about Brent and Becky's Bulbs. Where in Virginia are you located, and how did you get started?
Well, we're located in Tidewater, Virginia, which is the lower part of the Chesapeake Bay, not far from Williamsburg. And I actually got started because my grandfather ate a cantaloupe.
Okay.
He was actually a damn Yankee. He followed the cantaloupe south. He was from Brookline, Massachusetts. And it was he who started the flower bulb business, the daffodil business. And his initiation, Gloucester and Matthews counties grew more daffodils than anywhere in the world during the Depression and thereafter up until the Second World War. And my family, my father became involved in the business, and he and my mother had a mail order business called the Daffodil Mart with 1,500 varieties of daffodils.
Oh my goodness, wow.
This is what I grew up with. And I bought the business from my mother in 1972. And after a brief starter marriage, I ended up marrying one of my children's school teachers, Becky, and the business has grown from then. And now we have the fourth generation involved, which is wonderful.
So you have naturalized in this.
I have indeed.
And I have to say, just the allusion to 1,500 varieties of daffodil, it gives people a hint of how people can fall into this world and really become lost in it and love it and become a passion for people, because bulbs are one of those niche areas of gardening that inspires great passion in people. People really respond to bulbs in a different way than they do a lot of other flowers. Why do you think that is?
Well, they're the icing on the cake.
You
know, they're the shoes and the socks in the garden. They're the basis, and then they're the flair. And it's so neat to have a plant that comes up and short order surprises you with spectacular color and then does its growing thing in a short time and goes back and spends the rest of the time underground and shares that space with other plants that follow in sequence. So
I think the surprise element has a lot to do with it. You know, I remember as a child when the first daffodils would come up through the snow in upstate New York often. Being amazed that they were there all along.
That's right. That's right. That element of surprise when they do come. The good Lord gives them what they need to prompt them to come up, and sometimes it's day length, but the early bloomers, more often it's the warmth of the soil that triggers them to come up and bloom.
Well, you know, you have customers all throughout the United States,
we do.
Including, I'm sure, many from Central Texas. And I know that being in the field that you're familiar with which bulbs do well where. So let's start by talking about some varieties that you would recommend to the uninitiated in Central Texas, the people who haven't quite gotten addicted yet to this habit.
Well, you're in a warmer part of the country. So generally speaking, the kinds of bulbs that are from warmer parts of the world will probably do better here. And in the world of daffodils, it would be more the Tizeta types, the paper whites, the old-fashioned 17 Sisters types with many flowers on the stem with a musky fragrance, and the Jonquilla types, those sweetly fragrant ones with dark green leaves. They're both from warmer climates, and I would suspect they do better here. And they're hybrids with some of the bigger, more northern types also will do fairly well here. So we have a fair range of daffodils that I think will perennialize here. And I like to use that term because most daffodils do not reseed and spread around. And that's what the word naturalized means.
Okay, so distinction between naturalized and perennialized. Okay, we've got it. We will no longer refer to these things as naturalizing.
And some bulbs do naturalize beautifully.
Oh, yeah.
And the little Narcissus jonquilla naturalizes here quite freely. It does spread by seed.
Okay. As do, for example, rain lilies, which is one of my absolute favorite plant families, especially the Zephyranthes.
Incredible little plants, and an interesting feature is they're, related to daffodils.
I did not know that.
They're both in the Amaryllis plant family.
Okay,
and the Amaryllis
Amaryllids,
plant family
okay.
has a neat feature in that there are alkaloids contained within the bulbs that render them critter-proof. So nothing eats any amaryllis, except a grasshopper. There's one grasshopper in Florida, and you may have the lubber here also. They can tolerate the alkaloids, but that's the only thing that can. So amaryllis family members, daffodils, Zephyranthes, Leucojum,
Okay,
and
Leucojum is a
Galanthus
great plant for us
are
here.
all critter-proof. Now, you may not have critters here that you worry about eating in your gardens. No voles, rabbits, squirrels, deer.
Deer is
Oh, dear.
a huge issue in this region.
Well,
An enormous deer herd.
They
Yeah.
don't eat any amaryllis.
Okay.
So you're
All right.
you're safe
Duly
plant.
noted. And in the Amaryllis family as well, another all-time favorite of mine is what we call the oxblood lily.
Oh, yeah. The oxblood lilies, Rhodophylla bifida from Chile. And also an interesting plant. Many bulbs are montane, coming from mountainous climates where dry summers, they retreat underground.
Exactly.
And moisture during the winters, they come up and grow and do their thing, or early springs. But another along this line are the Lycoris.
Yeah,
And the
absolutely.
Lycoris are actually from Asia, from Japan and China, and they're wonderful fall bloomers.
Right.
Another little one called Sternbergia lutea, which is actually from Turkey and Iraq and Iran. It looks like a yellow crocus, but it's an amaryllis also.
Okay.
It's a fall bloomer.
Sternbergia. Okay. I've not seen it on the market here, but I don't think I've ever gardened with it.
And I think my sister has it in her garden here. And they're lovely. They have winter leaves. Now, the Rhodophylla and the Lycoris and the Sternbergia all have winter leaves.
Right.
But your climate's mild enough that they aren't affected by light frost.
Mild is a nice word to use a better climate.
Okay. All right.
Our summers tend to last about 8 months.
All right.
And so summer blooming bulbs, crinums are one that I think of, at least for an early summer plant.
Another amaryllis, granums are.
Okay, sure.
And very moisture, very drought tolerant, but also moisture tolerant.
Yeah, they
they'll
can-
grow in
in
quite
swamps.
heavy, wet soils, which is kind of fun for them.
Yeah.
And they're pass-along plants. They stay with you forever.
Yeah.
Their grandmothers that pass them on, and they get passed on, and those bulbs, mother bulbs, of course, divide and eventually end up with big clumps, but great in that they're kind of hard to dig. They go to China.
Well, they do, and some of the bulbs can weigh 60 pounds.
Oh, they can get quite big.
A Crinum asiaticum, which is a 60-pound bulb.
No, it's not a hardy one for us.
Right.
But, so you're a little warmer than we are, probably.
I think so. But it is a classic pass-along plant. In fact, the only crinums I've ever had in any of my gardens ended up, a mysterious visitor left some at my doorstep once.
Oh, wow. Isn't that nice? Wasn't that a great
now
thing?
that they've been in multiple gardens of mine, and happily so.
Isn't it neat to be able to touch someone
Yeah.
in a positive way, to give them a surprise, and you
Right.
don't know where it came from.
I didn't even know which variety it was. So
If each of us would do something like that every day, we'd have so much nicer world to live in.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. Now, and we just have a little bit of time, so I want to make sure people are firmly aware again of the nature of the business. It's Brent and Becky's Bulbs, and obviously can be found online. But I have to say, one of the great pleasures of doing business with you is getting the catalog, which is a dream machine.
Well, that's my wife's fault. She's the artist who puts all that together. I married well. I married a smart woman. And then if it's a web stuff, that's my son's fault. He does
Okay.
all of that.
Multi-generational.
It is
It's a
indeed.
good thing. It's a very good thing. Well, again, we're deeply appreciative of you making your way to the studios here to visit with us at Central Texas Gardener. Best wishes to you and Becky both.
Well, I certainly appreciate your having me, and if you're ever visiting in the Williamsburg area, please be sure to come to visit Becky's Teaching Garden, a 10-acre themed idea garden room.
All right, excellent. Well, thank you so much. And coming up is our friend Daphne.